once again, my friends, and now I'm going to take you on a tour of the Java string data type to tell you a little bit about what Java strings are and how to use them and some of the methods that are available with them. So I crafted a nice little Word document just for you to take you through how to use the string type and the ins and the outs, and of course we're going to get into some code, but let's dive in. I'm going to explain a little bit here about the data type. Strings, they're collections or sequences of text characters. Text characters being letters, numbers, symbols, even spaces and things like that are text characters. Basically, anything that you can type on your keyboard is a text character. All the symbols you see down there on your keyboard when you look down, I know you're looking down, so keep looking. Those are all text. A string is composed of a grouping of individual characters. A string's kind of like a data structure that consists of individual characters. Like, think about the data structure of an array or like a list in another language. These are groupings of individual pieces of data. A string is a little more specific in that it is a grouping of text characters. Each individual piece, each individual element is a text character. Strings in Java are represented by the string class. Now this is the first class that we're covering in terms of the Java class library. Things that we've looked at so far have been primitive types. We haven't really delved into an object type, which is what classes are. Being an object type and not a primitive type, the string data type contains properties and methods as well as a value. The distinguishing characteristic between primitives and object types or class types, depending on the term you want to use, is that object and class types, they contain their own properties and methods and a value, whereas primitives only contain a value. So strings are going to be more multifaceted than your typical integer, float, double, those primitive data types. They're called primitive for a reason. And you'll see some of the methods that are available with strings a little later on. The string class, along with the character class and the character primitive type, because there's both. There's a class for characters and there's a primitive type. String, there is only a class type. But the strings and character, those two data types represent text data in Java. Like, those two are used to represent text data. A string is a collection of characters. A character is an individual character, like one symbol, one letter. So characters again for individual, string for multiple. Let's get into some usage down here, or some creation. Scroll. You can initialize strings in several ways, but the most common ways to initialize strings are, you're either going to set the string equal to literal string data, or you're going to use instantiation syntax. And that's what I have here. I have an example of each. The first one there, where you have string hello equals hello world, this is just the string being set equal to literal string data. And this is the term. This is literal string data. When you see text data in quotes in programming, that is called literal data. It'll take me 2 years to type this out, but I'm going to go ahead and do it for emphasis. This is literal string data. Hello world. So one way to initialize is very simple. You just say data type string, variable name hello equals hello world, the literal data. That's one way. This other way is what is called instantiation syntax. And I'll just abbreviate this INSTA. for all you Insta heads out there. And that is an N, believe it or not. This is instantiation syntax. What instantiation syntax is, it's a way to initialize really in the form that you create an object in. See, in Java, objects are created with instantiation syntax, just like this. Well, with strings, you have the option to use instantiation syntax, or you can use regular assignment syntax. So assigning using a literal, like the first example, this is kind of just regular assignment syntax. The second one is instantiation syntax, and again, instantiation syntax is used to create objects. Both of these actually end up creating objects. It's just there's two ways to do it. So the second one is a way you're going to do it. It kind of more conforms to, this is how you create any object. Any object type is going to be created like this using this form, where you have the type, you have the variable name, then you have the equal sign, and then you have this new operator. The new operator is always part of instantiation syntax. It is basically creating memory and creating the new object. So when you have new string, it's creating a new string. It is actually initializing and creating the object string. And after string, you have the parentheses, and then you put your literal data inside the parentheses. This is going to create a string that contains the value hello world. Going down here a little bit, data in a string variable is enclosed in double quotes, as you see with these two string literals, double quotes. That is to contrast with characters, which characters use single quotes. So that's the difference in Java, where double quotes equals string data, single quotes equal character data. And when you see character data, it's got to be in a single quote. Moving on to usage. Learn how to use this stuff. Strings can be printed using the system out println method by placing either a string variable or literal string in parentheses. And you see examples of both here, where system out println, this is your normal printing function in Java, and we have our little string data. It's going to print hello world. Here we have two lines to produce, two lines to use the print, where we initialize a variable first here, s to hello, and then we put the variable in the parentheses of println, and it's going to print hello. So two ways to print, literal or variable. All right, let's dig in here a little more. Accessing individual characters within a string is done with the charat method. Yeah, there's a method in strings that allows you to access individual characters within that string. And this is there's more than one way to do this. This is one way. The first way I'm going to show you. Another way is a method called substring, which you'll see soon. But accessing individual characters within this string is done with the charat method. Charat takes an index as an argument and gives you the character from that string at the index. If you hear that, that's my phone going off for an appointment that's coming up. Yeah, always busy, never not working, right? So it takes an index as an argument and gives you a character from the string at that index. The data type that you get from this is going to be a character, not a string. And a little note there, strings cannot be indexed using bracketed syntax. So if you thought that Well, in C++, you can actually do that, where you take a string, you do the bracket indexing syntax, and it works. That doesn't work in Java. In Java, you've got to use a method to access individual characters of a string. And again, one of those methods is char_at. Let's take a look, homies, where you have string s equals hello world, and then we call char_at. Notice when you call a string method, it is the string variable name dot method name. That's how you're going to call all of the string methods. And this goes back to the idea that the string is an object or class type where it contains methods and properties. Well, char_at is the first method we're looking at that the string data type contains. Strings contain char_at, and the dot really shows membership. This is called, you could say, dot notation. I'll write it on the board for you. Yeah, writing with your mouse is a little weird, but I'm kind of used to it. You've seen it in other videos, right? And you're going to see it for the duration of this one. But yeah, that's called dot notation, and you have the string variable dot method name. That's the format you're going to be using generally to call or run methods. So we have char_at, and then we have the index inside there, the index number. So we're going to get the character at index 4. So let's count up. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is an O. So char_at returns a character. That character is going to go into C. And notice on the left side of the equal sign we have character C equals, because char_at is going to return a character. Remember I said destination is always on the left, or the destination of the expression on the right is to the left, something like that. Well, that there you see that. And then we're going to print out C to print that character. I'm going to grab this and head into our first usage of online GDB in this module. So I want you to get an example of this, John. Yeah, let's just drop it right in here and see how it looks. OnlineGDB.com, folks, if you want to follow along. Just in case you haven't seen the other modules, I don't know if people are going to be jumping through the different ones or whatnot, but the editor that we're using in this course is OnlineGDB.com. And I got to clean up these. Let's run it. And we get our big fat O, the big O. That's actually a pretty small O, but you know what I mean. So yeah, char_at 4. Let's do a different char_at, homies. Well, let's do char_at 10. And if we count up, let's see, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That should give us the D. Get the O and the D, I think. Yeah. So D is the 10th index, or the 10th element. What if we try to index something that ain't there, like go way past like 20? You get what is called an exception in Java, where it says string index out of bounds exception, which pretty self-explanatory. Index 20 is out of bounds because you only got 10 things in the, I guess you could say 11. You've only got 11 characters. So index 20 out of bounds, max index would be 10. So there we go. But that is a char_at. Moving on to another usage idea. Hit back full screen. I like it. What about when you want to compare two strings with an if or an else if, as it were? Like if you want to compare string 1 to string 2 to see if they're equivalent. Well, there's a little wrinkle there because you cannot use the regular double equals Boolean operator or comparison operator to compare strings. You got to do something else. There's a method for that, basically. Yeah, comparing string values cannot be done with the Boolean equals operator, as is possible with many data types. To compare string values, you have to use the dot equals method. Dot equals is another string method that is available with strings, and it does value comparison, comparing one string to another for equivalence, and it returns true or false. Returns true if the two strings are equal, returns false if they are not equal. Take a look at this code, shall we? We have one string which equals hello, or yellow, not hello. We have string 2 that is equal to yellow. Notice that these two values are the same. So you would think that if you do an if with 1 equals 2, like comparing them, they should be the same. This should print out, but it doesn't. I'll tell you why pretty soon. You look at this one, and here we have the usage of the dot equals method, where just like the other string methods, it is variable name dot and then method name. So we're calling it on the variable 1. So it's 1 dot equals, and then you put what you're comparing it to in the parentheses. So 2, so really 1 is being compared to 2, and then if they are the same, this will be true, and it'll print out same equals. This one will print because the two values are equal. And let us actually, I'm going to slide this in to GDB just so you see, online GDB, so you see the outcome. And then we're going to talk about the why. Okay, the quotes are good. All right, so we have these two strings and then we have two comparison pieces. Let's run. Okay, so we see that the only thing that prints out is this one. This one does not print. You don't see the two equal signs printing, but the dot equals one does print. Even though, yeah, these are exactly the same. It just shows you that this does not work for equivalence. Now let's go back to the sheet, or the, let's go back to the notes to figure out why, or for me to tell you why. A lot of wind outside, folks. Get crazy out there. So here's our reason. In Java, the equals comparison operator, when applied to object types, compares if the two objects are the same object. Remember that strings are object types, so they have to conform to these rules. Strings are object types, thus comparing them with the double equals, it compares if the two strings are exactly the same object. In this case, they are not. If you look at this code, we have distinctly string object 1, string object 2. These are not the same object. So the double equals will not give the same. So like if we went ahead and made them the same object, like if we compared 1 to 1, which is, those are both the same object, let's see what we get here. Notice that the double equals does print out. So because those are two of the same objects, we switch it up and we see that our same double equals is gone because they are not the same object. So yeah, in Java, double equals compares if they are the same object. I know I've said it like 5 times, but I like to repeat myself to really have you get it and remember it. So henceforth, you're going to remember it, because some people get confused by this rule, actually. Like a little, even later on, they do. Using the dot equals instead compares the values. Compares if the values are equal. So, like we just saw, above, the first is going to be false, though the double equals is going to be false, as the two strings do not refer to the same object. The second if will be true because both strings do contain yellow. So just remember, dot equals compares values. So you got to use that with strings for comparisons. Moving on, we look at the length method. This is a very important method in Java. That is the language we're on, right? Yeah. The length method can be used to obtain the number of characters in a string. So length refers to the number of characters. Looking at this next code snippet, we have a long string from the old movie Mary Poppins. I'm not going to call it great because I'm not even sure of my opinion of it, so I'm not just going to say it's great, but I'll reevaluate it and let you know. But the movie Mary Poppins has this word in it. It's a very strong, it's a very long word, and here I get the length of it, and it looks like it's 34 characters. It actually looks like more than 34 characters, but it is longer than the alphabet, so that's pretty dang long. But dot length is very useful, getting the length of a string. Well, you're going to see its usefulness. Definitely going to be useful in loops, where you're going to see pretty soon where we loop through a string. We use the length of it to create the condition, because if you want to get from the beginning to the end of a string, you got to know how long it is. And if you don't, you're never going to get to the end, or you're going to cut it short, blah, blah, blah. So length is important. Concatenation. Sounds like a Spanish dance or something. Concatenation, it's the combination of two or more strings using the plus operator. So yes, you can combine two or more strings using a plus. Remember, the plus when assigned to addition is going to add numbers together. Well, when you apply the plus to strings, it's really going to add strings together, as it were. So you have this first string, you become, second string, two is, or end is what you think about. And then here is the concatenation. This is the concatenation operator for strings, the plus. Begin plus end, it's really just going to combine the two strings, where it's going to create, you become what you think about, which is absolutely true. But concatenation between the two variables turns them into one string. Very important concept in strings. And you're going to see this in pretty much any language you use out there. Well, most. Java, C++, JavaScript, Python, and some others that I can't think of now. C#, yeah. Yeah, concatenation produces a new string that is the combination of the two other strings, but and it's two or more strings. You could concatenate 10 strings together or more. So not just 2. Let us look at looping, folks. Cut off there. Looping. Yeah, using a loop, you can access each character from a string one character at a time. So we have a string here. It says this is great, because it is great. Let's be positive, homies. This is great, and then I'm using a for loop, and in this for loop, I am, as it is said, traversing the string and accessing each individual character of that string. So like a loop, you can traverse and access each individual character. How do we do it? Well, we start I at 0, and then here is our condition. And notice the usage of dot length, like I just said. Our condition is while I is less than s dot length. S dot length being the length of the string. So this is basically saying we're going to loop as long as the string is long. So we're going to loop until we get to the end of the string, and we're going to go character by character. Character index by character index, basically. And what are we going to do each iteration? We're going to print the character at index I. So it's going to print each individual character from the string. And as this says, it's going to print each character from the string one at a time, with each character appearing on their own line like this. The capitalization kind of got messed up, but let's take this one for a spin in the old GDBer. Yep. Get the quotes squared up. Some guy doing work on his house outside. Loud. It's been at it for months. Be interesting to see what results. I will not be showing that on YouTube. Maybe he has a YouTube. Alright, so let's take this code for a spin. And as I was saying before, it prints each character on its own line because we're using char@, to access one character. And using println is going to always go to the next line after printing. So print, next line, print, next line, print. So it prints this vertically. Let's look at another example. Right here. Here's a little wrinkle. Using concatenation via the combination plus equals operator in a loop produces an accumulation effect. This is actually a typo right here, but you heard what I said. It's not in a loop using, it's, you know what I mean. When you use the combination operator in a loop with a string, it produces an accumulation effect. Now let's look at this while loop where we have a string equaling hello world, and then we initialize I to 0, and then while I is less than 10, while I is less than 10, it's going to loop 10 times. What are we going to do? Here we have s plus equals exclamation. Notice exclamation is a string value because it's enclosed in double quotes. So it's gonna, this is a concatenation operator actually. So because it's being applied to strings, and the plus equals, this is the thing where it's going to concatenate and assign, and it's going to produce an accumulation where as this loops, an exclamation is going to be added onto the end, concatenated onto the end, one at a time. And then we have our I++, which is simply, it's going to increment I. We've got to have that in the while loop for this to run properly. But the focus has got to be here, because this is going to tack on, really concatenate exclamations to the end of that string. And remember, what is that string? It's hello world. So it's going to tack on a bunch of exclamations to hello world. Interesting. But here's another usage of loops with a string, where you can use loops to actually build a string where you're like creating this accumulation effect of symbols on the string. And if any of that confused you, let us now run this in online GDB. Yiggity yes, yes. Drop the code in. These need to be straightened out. Always with the quotes don't format correctly, copying from Word doc. And there's a beautify button on here, which is kind of cool. It'll properly format your code, which is dope, because I tend not to do that stuff, that ish. All right, let's run it, see what we get. I think I know what it is. So what we have here is our original hello world, and we've added the 10 exclamations. It will loop 10 times and add an exclamation for each looping, for each iteration. Yeah, that's something else you can do with a loop here. If we want to add a little thing here, we change the 10 to 20. It means we're going to loop more, which means we're going to add more exclamations. Now it adds 20 to it. So there's another way to use loops with your awesome string data type. And next, we're going to look at string methods. We are back in the lab, and now we're going to check out string methods in Java. The string class contains several useful methods to help you use strings more effectively and efficiently. So within the string data type, it's got a bunch of methods that really help you out, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And we're going to go over several of them, really several of the more prominent ones right now. First one is index of, this sucker right here. It's going to allow you to get the index of a character in a string. So you could, basically you're searching the character, searching a character, that doesn't make sense. You're searching the string for a character, and it'll give you the index of the first occurrence. Looking at this code snippet here, where focus goes, energy flows. And then we create an integer index, and here is the calling of the function, or sorry, method. I'm so used to functions in other languages, but method. Index of method, we get the index of f, and it's going to be 6. Because you can follow along in the string where this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Of course, the space counts. So f is 6. Index of, it'll put 6 into that variable. That's what it's going to do. But yeah, it is a way to get the index of the first occurrence of a character, or really the first occurrence of a string within a string, because this term here, this argument, it can be more than one character. It's going to give you the index of the beginning of the string. If it's more than one character, it'll give you the index of the beginning of that string. But of course, if it's one character, it's going to give you the index of that character. As it says, going to contain 6, referring to the numeric index where the first occurrence of F is found. There's a lot of F's in that statement. F is found. Moving on, contains. Contains are going to determine if a string contains a substring. And this will return true or false. This is a Boolean method. Here we create a string, quote, where focus goes, energy flows. I think that was the last string we created as well. I'm not looking back, folks. If quote contains energy, then print quote is correct. Here is the call to contains. Of course, we have the variable name dot contains. How you use contains is you put the string, really the substring you're searching for, in the parentheses, and contains will tell you true or false, is that string in there. Obviously energy is in here, so this is gonna be true. So this if is gonna be true, the body is gonna print. And that's really how you use contains. Contains is typically gonna be used in if and else if statements. I almost said elif because always coming from Python, but it's going to be an if and else if statements, usually because it returns a Boolean value. And of course, ifs and else ifs evaluate Boolean expressions. So there you go. And yeah, as the text says, contains returns true or false depending if the string contains the substring in parentheses. In this case, the code is going to print quote is correct because contains returns true. All kinds of weird sounds going over here with my chair. Hopefully y'all don't hear that, but I'm sure you do. Check this one out. Substring. This is a cool one. This is actually, well, let me give the definition. Extracts a substring, which is a subset of a string. So like, it'll extract really a piece of a larger string. Substring is the other way. If you wanted to get a single character out of a string, substring is the other way to do that. Remember I told you about charat a little while ago? Charat is going to give you a single character. Substring can do that as well, but charat is only for single characters. Substring will give you one or more characters from a string. So a little more flexible, and substring always returns a string, whereas charat returns a character. And I'll stop talking about charat. And there are some weird sounds going on in this room. It's getting late. Maybe there's a ghost in here or something. Ghosts always come out at night, right? That's you don't see ghosts at like 12 p.m. Interestingly. So we have our same string where focus goes, energy flows, and looking at, here's the method call. I probably said function again in the last few minutes, but these are methods, not functions. This is how you use substring. You specify a beginning and ending index, and it'll basically give you a slice or a subset of the string. This would be the beginning of your subset. This would be the end. Abbreviated B and E, 18 to 24. And what that's going to give you here is actually energy, because the E is 18. The 24, I believe, is actually the space. See, the substring method, it is, the end is not inclusive. So this will actually go from 18 to 23, but you have to specify 24 to get 23. It's that non-inclusivity of the end. So the end is exclusive. the beginning is inclusive, including 18, excluding 24. Confusing, but that's how some languages do it. I'm going to grab this one and run it in GDB because I haven't run any code yet. I'm not going to end the video without running any damn code. Let's go over it. This is why I have my split screen up. Got to use it. I definitely want you to see some stuff here. So, substring is an important method. You're gonna use it a hell of a lot. Hella, as they say in NorCal, right? Anybody watching from NorCal, the Bay, Oakland, Sacramento? Shout out. 18 to 24. So this is gonna give you energy. As we see there, energy. Let's say if we hit 23, it's going to give you energy, right? As we see, yeah. So I was saying about the fact that substring is also a way to give you a single character from a string, even though that single character will be a string data type. Note that, but it is a way to do it. If you want to get a single character, you can simply have your range be a range of 1. What I mean by that is you will put consecutive indexes. Like if I want to get only the E, I would put 18, 19. That's going to give me the E. I deleted a parenthesis. Yeah. There's my E. So yeah, 18 and 19. So this is another way to extract a single character. But again, I repeat myself a lot. It is going to be string data type, even though it's a single character, it's a string data type. So chill on that, folks. But that's substring. Substring is useful. Definitely. So that's one form of substring is the beginning and the end. Another form of substring is if you simply specify, you have the option to specify a single index, and that's, if you specify a single index, it's going to give you the starting index and then give you the rest of the string. So if I have a single index in here, it's going to start there and then give me the rest of the string. So your options there are single index like this or beginning and ending. And to my knowledge, those are the only forms. There may be some other ones. These are the only ones that I typically use. So it may be the only ones. But at least now you know these two exist. They're the two I can remember right now, basically. I'm not looking up the docs right now during the video. You can do that on your own. And so can I. So yeah, with the one index specified, it starts at 18 and gives you the rest of the string. So that's what it does. And that is substring. In a nutshell, as I say all the damn time. That you've never heard me say, right? Okay, let's look at equals ignore case. I was telling you before in the last video on strings actually, that you cannot compare strings with a double equal sign because that is an object comparison. And that compares if two objects refer to the same object. So that doesn't work. You have to use dot equals. Well, equals ignore case is along the same lines as dot equals, except for the fact that it does a value comparison ignoring case. So it is a case insensitive comparison. Equals is a case-sensitive comparison. So there's your difference. So if you want to ignore case, use equals ignore case. As we see here with our string 1, string 2, it's the same damn word, but you've got different casing. And equals ignore case, it returns true or false, Boolean. So much like equals, you're going to typically use it in an if or an else if statement. So I'm using here in an if where you call it off of a string variable, 1 dot equals ignore case 2, comparing 1 to 2. And if you do a case insensitive comparison, this is going to be true because they're the same letters, just different cases. So the print statement will print they are equal in content. Equal in content, but not in case. Check out this next one, the value of, another useful. These are all useful methods, of course. So once you count how many times I said function instead of method with this. The value of, convert other data types to a string. Yeah, this is going to allow you to convert other data types to a string like I just read. Here we got an example. Integer x is 42. Integer. Then we have string Jersey num equals string dot value of x. From the previous line, we see that x is an integer. We put x into this into the parentheses here. It's going to turn it into a string and then place that string in Jersey num. So Jersey num will be a string with the characters 4 and 2 in that string. So it's been converted. There are several value of methods in the string class. There's really a value of for any data type that you can convert to a string, like integer, double, character, Boolean, and there's a few other ones. Basically any primitive type, I believe, that you can convert to a string, there's a value of method for. So value of is a set of methods actually that allow you to convert from whatever type to a string. And all the ones that are valid, I guess, are there. The ones that aren't valid wouldn't be there. Why would you create a method for something you can't do? Right? Right. Yeah, I wasn't sure, but yeah, let's go ahead and put this into code. Play around with this sucker a little bit. A little demo here. Beautify. So if I go ahead and print out Jersey num, of course I'm gonna get a 42, but we don't know what the hell 42 is. It's yeah, you see the two numbers here, but is it a string? Is it a blah blah blah? Is it an integer? You don't really know. The way to know is really to do a string operation on it or an integer operation to see what results. So what you could do actually is see what happens when you concatenate a string hello to it, and that'll tell you whether it's a string or an integer. Because if it's an integer, I don't think it's going to work. If it's a string, it's just going to concatenate. I actually don't remember the rule, which is kind of funny. I'm trying to teach it to you, I don't remember the rule. But here it concatenates. Let's try to concatenate the integer to it to see what would happen there, because I just don't remember. Yeah, this is what I expected to happen, what I wasn't completely sure. X being an integer cannot concatenate. I wasn't sure if it was going to auto concatenate, sort of, if it's going to do automatic conversion, because it does in the println when you concatenate integer to string in the print method, it will auto convert. Anyway, it does not, and herein lies the difference. X is an integer, it will not concatenate. Jersey num is a string, it will concatenate. So here is your evidence that Jersey num is a string. Kind of limited evidence. But that's value of converter. Useful as heck. We move on to replace. Erase, replace, my friends. Replace a portion of a string with another string. Classic string method / function. We have a string greet. How are you doing today? Greet. Here we call replace. How replace works is that its first argument is old. Second argument is new. Replace will replace a portion of a string with another string. It takes, old is going to be the replacement, new is going to be what it is being replaced with. So in this string, you is going to be replaced with we. How are we doing today? To kind of quote that annoying guy at work that always asks you, how we doing today? You know, there's always that guy in the office. How we doing? Anyway, I'm sure I've been that guy before. Yeah, replace is actually going to replace all occurrences of a string with another string within a string. Say that, just 3. That's a little redundant, isn't it? But, and yeah, I did write this. This is not AI bullshit. The first string is going to be what you're replacing. Second string is going to be what you're replacing it with. And there you go. Let's pop this into code. Let's just do it. I'm in a code snippet coding mode. Super technology. Let's go. Gotta fix my quotes. Interesting how sometimes you kind of go in here, the quotes are fine, and then other times from the same application, like there's no real difference there. I think the fonts are the same too. Try a couple things with this. Great. Let's beautify that code. Yeah, that looks better, don't it? So how we doing today? So again, old, new, replace. How about this? If we change we to I, how are I doing today? How is I and I doing today? How about let's do that? Could be a Rasta man. I got dreads, right? How are I and I doing today? I'm Iriman. Outstanding. But yeah, that's what it does. And like I said, it replaces all occurrences. So if I have more U's, if I just add more U's there, and I run the same code, we're going to get more replacement. Try to decipher that one, my friends. How are I and I doing today? I and I is doing all right. I and I. You would swear the dude who said this just smoked a joint, like straight up. But anyway, that is replace. And for those wondering, I haven't smoked a joint in years. It's been a while. Next, we're going to look at split, and what split does is it takes a string and converts it into a string array, splitting it into elements based on a delimiter. So it's going to take a string and split it up based on a thing called a delimiter. What's a delimiter? A delimiter is, it's typically a character or a substring that is used to take a string and section it off. Where we have here string domain, we have one string and it's put into sections with these dashes. These dashes would be the delimiter in this case. It is typically a symbol like a dot, underscore, dash, hash mark to split a string into sections. And what split is going to do is you will specify a delimiter as an argument, and it will take the string and split it apart based on that argument, based on that delimiter. And what it's going to do is turn it into an array where the elements will be the subsections of the string. So a string like this, it's going to turn into an array where classified is index 0 or element 0, element 1, 2, 3, 4. These will be the separate elements. The dashes are going to be used as separators, where you see split domain this array. It's going to be the result of domain.split. Split being, or the argument to split being the dash, going to go in between, and it's going to break it apart into those pieces. Like the telestrator here, good stuff, good stuff. So it's going to split it apart, like I just said, hence the name. Very useful method for string parsing, string processing, really, to break the string up. Let's take a look at this thing in code. Don't fall asleep on me yet, folks. Still going. Magically, I already got my code here, so want to alert you to this thing right here where, so I've got my setup here. I've got the string, and then I'm calling split, and I'm putting it into the string array. How do I print this thing? Well, you have to print in Java. You cannot print directly in system out println. What you got to do is we have to use a utility class called arrays from the Java class library, and you got to import it. And arrays has a method called toString that allows you to print an array very easily. Because if you try to print an array using println, you're going to get a memory address. You're going to be like, what the hell's going on? So you can't do that. So let's run it. And what do we get? We get the string split apart. Classified, top secret, blah, blah, blah. There we go. So there is split. Super useful method. And this is the end of the strings module. Next, we're going to do something I can't remember, but you'll see it in the next module. But for now, I'm out. See ya.